also do the extension on their own so you can punish that, or you just watch impotently if they don't, because if you had attacked them, there was a risk that they would have done damage to you instead. I haven't even gotten to the bullshit that is the unavoidable hits yet, and I'm already furious with these bosses. There's so much about this combat system's design that is based around forcing you to wait around while the boss has fun, and it's not even another person, it's an AI. I do not understand it.
Hello, my name is Lupine, and I am not proud of the footage in this video. What you are about to bear witness to is my shame and stubbornness as a strength purist trying to beat Malenia for the first time. I hadn't planned to record any of my first playthrough of Elden Ring, but I lost a bet to my friend's sleep and I had to record my entire ordeal. Now originally this video was meant to be just a fun little death montage of my dozens if not hundreds of failed attempts at beating Malenia for the first time, since I never streamed it for the boys.
What was Mikola the prodigy of? Becoming a fucking like endosperm for a tree?
However, my jimmies have been thoroughly rustled by Joseph Anderson's recent review of Elden Ring. I'm going to be showing clips from his video as you can see, so at the risk of taking him out of context, please go watch his video for yourself. You will see that we play with the exact same build. Pure two-hander action with no magic or summons, and yet we have completely different opinions on the game. JM has done a pretty good job responding to Joseph's take on the game's combat, and he's a lot more cool-headed than I am, but I also don't want you babbies who have their mind numbed by 2-hour-long video essays into absently nodding along, using this video as fuel for the whole Elden Ring bosses are unfair, unbalanced, and unfun mentality. If you want someone to pander to you because you think the game is too hard, you're not going to find that here. I know the comment section is just going to be full of Malenia whiners, so instead today we're going to talk about why Elden Ring's bosses, even Malenia, are a massive improvement from previous titles, and why Joseph Anderson is a scrub.
Oh god, what do I do? No! What the fuck? What are you even meant to do there?
Quick thing before we start this video, I tend to get a little salty when I play hard video games.
What the fuck?
Okay, a lot salty. If you don't want that, go watch Bob Ross. I'm going to be showing my footage of me dying to Malenia to remind us about how I felt the first time I faced this boss when I tried to just brute force her. I thought it would be a neat contrast between how fucking stubborn I was then and the me now speaking to you, having played 10 or more playthroughs since then. Also, I don't get how rage gaming is a bad thing. Like, obviously smashing your personal property is a spaz move, but just because I'm yelling at a game doesn't mean I'm not having fun. I'm not going to yell at my coworkers, so when else do I get a chance to express my frustration in a healthy way? It's the same reason a lot of people like hardcore and aggressive music. It's a healthy vent. I know you've probably met that weird guy who finds death metal oddly soothing. Trust me when I say that no matter how frustrated I sound, this is just how I enjoy challenging games. No, it's not an addiction. I can stop playing whenever I want. And lastly, before we get into it, I should clarify what I mean by the term scrub, since a lot of people tend to misuse the word. A scrub is not someone who is bad at a game. It is about their mentality. Someone who is content in their ignorance of the game while blaming random mechanics they don't fully grasp and spinning any and every excuse they can think of to justify their trash gameplay, rather than genuinely asking for advice and looking for ways to improve. Sajam, the fighting game guru, explains this a lot more eloquently than I can.
I do think a lot of new players just think scrubs are anybody who's new. That is not the case. The difference between someone being a beginner or a new player and a scrub is attitude. When you look at a scrub quotes, does it say, I don't understand. How do I get past this move? You have to jump. Oh, thanks. That's not what it is. A scrub will say that the sun was in their eye, your character's broken, it's an unwinnable matchup, they tech that, lag, you're a zoning cheater, you don't play by the same rules as me. They will come up with an excuse as to why you beat them. That is not their own skill level. That's a scrub. Being new does not make you a scrub. And not only that, being experienced doesn't not make you a scrub.
Joseph points out good observations about Elden Ring, but draws misplaced conclusions about the game's combat. And my main point of contention is that he says the game's combat is boring because it is unfair and it forces him to play passive. He wrongly laments bosses that have dice roll RNG combos that can be extended forever and give no consistent windows to punish, and claims that because of that, and the boss's very fast attack startups, you have no choice but to hit trade, which is boring. Referring to Dark Souls 3, he was refreshingly surprised how often he could safely attack bosses even from neutral.
Not only do the last set of bosses in this game attack for so long that it makes my videos look short, they also don't have clear and consistent punish windows afterward. Going back to Dark Souls 3, I was shocked to see how often I could safely be aggressive from neutral on bosses and between many of their combo swings, even with a big slow-ass weapon that you can see on the screen right now.
Joseph yearns for when boss design was turn-based, where a boss does a combo that you roll and then it stands still for 3 seconds and lets you swat them with R1s, rinse repeat ad nauseum for every single boss in the game. You will see me die dozens, maybe even hundreds of times to Malenia in this video, but you will also see me gradually move from an ultra-safe passive playstyle that makes phase 1 a 10-minute long grind into a hyper-aggressive madman who posture breaks her every 15 seconds and burns her first phase in under 2 minutes with only an Estus or 2. Malenia made me realize that I can't just treat the bosses in this game like a Dark Souls boss anymore.
Alright, you're dead, bitch. You're dead, bitch. What?
Hey. Oh no. How much HP does he have? Look, her heal to a full. The panic in your voice.
There wasn't even a fucking single red pixel. Let me guess, she's a follow-up now? Yep. Of course. Oh, I'm rotted. Oh, I'm dead. God damn it. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck.
Anderson's first playthrough for Souls games and mine just happened to be the exact same. A strength build with a two-handed colossal greatsword, no magic, no shields, no summons. I'm also limiting myself to rune level 125 because I want to make this character a PvP mule. It is baffling to me that he thinks the combat in Elden Ring is boring when I had so much fun. I realized upon watching his footage that Anderson spends all his time playing ultra safe, waiting for his guaranteed safe opening to appear, and when it never happens, he just complains instead. The biggest difference in Elden Ring to me is that bosses no longer let you take your turn and stand there after rolling their attacks so that you can hit them with R1s. Instead, you now have to get creative and find punishes in the middle of attack strings since the bosses attack so often and so relentlessly. And rest assured, there are plenty of safe combo enders for all the bosses that can be punished traditionally. Sometimes that window might be a bit shorter, and the boss might not be in a T-posing, neutral standstill animation, but they're there nonetheless. Joseph talks about these late game bosses in his Q&A livestream and tries to reason why they are so relentless in their attack strings and don't ever just do a 100% safe resting animation to signal to the player, okay, you have permission to attack me now.
I really think that there's something really fucked with the AI in Elden Ring when it comes to the bosses especially. And I feel like it's not just Godskin Duo, it's also Malekith, and it can also be Radagon and Elden Beast and all the other ones. I really feel that whatever kind of RNG glitched out fucking behavior that you can get from the bosses can determine how much you struggled with it. Those three seem to share this AI problem, whereas sometimes they would just not stop attacking. There were some attempts where they never went into this passive neutral state. It was just non-stop until I died. It's like a switch was flipped in their AI script, and that was it. They're just, I've just decided I'm gonna kill you, and it was just like bum 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 bum.
Yep. He does this sometimes in his Soulsborne videos where he blames gameplay mechanics that he doesn't understand on a glitch. The jump attack is a beautiful addition to dodge and can allow you to attack and get a heavy blow, but also you can use its low profile recovery animation to duck boss follow-ups and find even more windows to use it than you ever thought possible. And I know that Joseph knows this because in his video he does it to Mohg and Morgott. You can also low profile with quick crouch attacks without having to commit to a roll, and your positioning to the boss after a roll will affect what follow-up that boss actually does. I'll show you guys some footage of me fighting several late game bosses in this way later on in the video. All of these things Malenia taught me. I knew that I was being a stubborn fuck for wanting to beat her with a Zweihander only because I'm a strength purist, but I also knew that it would feel so fucking sweet when I finally beat her my way. It forced me to really experiment and push myself to find more opportunities to weave attacks in between her onslaught. That to me is much more engaging and fun than anything Dark Souls has ever given me.
Oh my god! Holy fuck! What is that damage? I fucking literally rolled!
The other problem that Joseph has besides the never-ending boss attacks is that he would find a safe punish window and it would work 9 times in a row, and then on the 10th time, the boss would do a move that he hadn't seen yet and hit him. He would see this and then never go for that punish ever again. Normally, I would do the same, but he vastly understates one key addition that he actually could have utilized more on his super self-restrictive playstyle, and that is the posture mechanic. He acknowledges its presence but hand waves it because you can't see the meter. The posture system is so critical to the colossal weapon playstyle in this game, and yet he barely mentions it. And it's kind of telling since he probably did not use the system very much at all, given how passive he played. The posture system rewards aggression. Once you realize this and you go for those 9 out of 10 punishes anyways, you start posture breaking bosses every 15 seconds and then waking them up with a fully charged R2 as well. By the way, this is only relevant in the discussion for a player just learning a new boss, because you can totally get guaranteed 10 out of 10 safe punishes on every boss while fighting actively anyways. Fights that were once tedious become an action-packed face melter, and honestly, I still rarely even get hit. He will say that sure, the game isn't necessarily forcing him to play passive, but he dislikes the idea of hit trading. Okay, why? Do you not like poise either? Isn't that kind of the point of a colossal weapon anyways, reaction trading light attacks? He knows you can hitlist these bosses, but if he doesn't care to do that, then why be so against hit trading? He mentions in this video and also his previous Souls critiques that he views HP flasks as a measure of how many mistakes you are allowed to make, rather than how aggressive and risky you are allowed to play. He also says that when it's the boss's turn, he isn't having fun because they just do attacks for 20 to 30 seconds straight. Even without learning to attack in between these combos, isn't rolling complex attack strings part of the fun? I hate to break it to him, but rolling is like 70% of what you do in these games. Here's the real kicker though. Joseph says this:
if you play with cheats and you have fun, then you had fun. If you're having fun, you're playing the game right. That doesn't mean we have all comparative experiences, but like, holy shit guys, can we just move past this?
If you are having fun, then you are playing the game right. If Joseph is not having fun with this game, then by his own definition, he is playing the game wrong.
If I bought the collector's edition of this game, I would take my statue out and take a fucking shit on it. I would throw it in the fucking toilet and take a fucking shit.
I'm a gambling man.
A concept that Joseph coins in his video is combo extensions, where a boss will be done attacking and make you think it is your turn, but when you approach them, they continue the combo lightning fast and thus make it so that you can never truly punish them. This is a misnomer. Combo extensions aren't real, they are just combos. If you run away, the boss won't finish the whole thing. Stay in range and put in the minimum effort and bait out the full combo. Bosses will reach a point in a combo where they will either stop attacking or they will continue with a combo branch depending on your positioning relative to them. There are plenty of opportunities to return damage on all the bosses if you actually try to look for them and not have your dick in your hand waiting for them to revert to some sort of neutral state animation. The boss attacks are based on proximity and positioning. For example, if you roll to the right, they can do an attack that can catch you, but if you roll to the left, you can actually swing because they either won't start a new attack or the attack they do will always whiff. Also, if you look at Margit's double knife attack as an example, it's not a question of will he do this attack after he's done his combo. I don't know, let's just roll the dice. It's a question of will Margit do the double knife combo branch that he is 95% likely to do if I am standing in front of him after dodging the initial part of the combo. The combos, by the way, where he can do fast knife are after a thrust attack or the one-handed overhead. He can also double knife from neutral, but this is a slightly different attack as you can just reaction roll it. Or you can roll backwards from the club and hammer spin attack to make him jump at you, which if you are still in front of him, he will then go into the slow thrust, which you can now roll behind and get a big punish. If you had stayed in front and punished the slow thrust, he would have been able to fast knife you. On the other hand, if you had rolled through the spin attack instead, you can sneak a hit in, but then you will have to dodge his 4-hit combo, which also ends in a safe punish. I am legitimately concerned at how many people I have to spell this out for. There is no coin flip with the bosses. You are going in for a punish and taking a chance that they will hit you because you are not attacking them during a free punish window. You are attacking them at a combo branch point where the boss will check your positioning. Positioning, not just proximity, is extremely important in order to bait out favorable attacks in Elden Ring. This is not a new concept at all and has been around since at least Bloodborne. If you're not familiar with flawless or no roll / sprint runners, these people beat bosses hitless and sometimes at base level without ever rolling or sprinting once. The only thing they have to rely on is baiting out attacks they can walk through and punish using their positioning. So it's odd to me that Joseph thinks this isn't a reliable method of fighting. Here's an entire library of moves you can bait out to backstab Orphan of Kos simply by walking. Joseph would instead back off and reset into neutral and complain that boss fights are just non-stop waiting around and that it's too unsafe to swing first at bosses, so now you just have to sit there. When DangaJM pointed out that if you don't want to risk rolling these long combos and you back off, you can reset neutral on Margit by throwing bombs or knives to get them to run after you again and stop posture healing. His response in a comment was basically, nope, you threw a bomb, so it doesn't count. I don't want to do that either because my build is bad. It's actually kind of incredible how hard you have to try to make the game boring, huh? I am still finding crazy new ways to fight bosses, new attacks I can jump over, and new ways to fight on my own terms in a way that I find fun and satisfying even after 10 playthroughs. Like, did you know that you can interrupt Scarlet Aeonia with a bomb, or stop a Falling Star Beast charge by hitting it in the head Matador style, or jump Margit's tail swipe? It might be hard to imagine watching this footage, but I would soon beat Malenia again in New Game Plus 3 with the same pure two-handed Zweihander build, still at rune level 125 on the first try.
Woo, 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 woo.
I'm a gambling man. Lord, I gamble from door to door.
Another thing that Joseph talks about ruining the combat is undodgeable or borderline undodgeable attacks. Spoiler alert, there are no unavoidable attacks in this game. There are only two that force you to play around the move in ways that some might consider tedious if your goal is to take 0 damage. Unfortunately for you, I really have no choice but to talk about these attacks individually, and unfortunately for me, it is much harder to debunk, and I can't teach you how to dodge every fucking attack in the game, but here are the ones I know that first come to mind for most people. Waterfowl dance is probably the best example of this, but it is a problem that is somewhat overblown in my opinion. Anderson admits that he knows there is a way to technically hitless every boss, but it requires very specific strats, and in the case of Waterfowl dance, it involves being as far from her as possible so that you can space the first hits, which contributes to more passive play. He gives some weird examples, so we'll go over them because as far as I know, there's maybe 2 attacks that are even problematic from a hitless standpoint. By the way, this is all assuming that you were trying to medium roll and perfectly iframe all these attacks instead of using the plethora of other tools like shields, spells, an Ash of War, Physic Tears, etc. Let's take a quick break from all the Mald.
What is that? What the fuck, dude?
Godric Storm Assault. Remember when we talked about positioning mattering for which attack you bait out? The Storm Assault is fast, yes, but it is meant to get you off of him and get you back into mid-range where his kit really shines. He only does this if you stay glued to him, and it's his "don't tread on me bro" attack. It's okay to design certain bosses to subtly force you into playing into a certain range if the boss is entirely based on fighting you at that range and you have to figure out how to get back in. If he didn't do this, you could literally just stand behind him the entire fight and dumpster him. This kind of boss has been around for a while in Soulsborne. Ludwig in Bloodborne has 3 to 4 of these exact same "get off me bro" attacks. Sure, they could have made it more reactable, but the point of it is to catch you off guard and make you panic roll. You have plenty of time to punish, just don't get greedy and give him some space after you attack and be ready for it. Mohg's undodgeable and infamous Nihil is a weird attack to support this idea too. I actually like the idea of a boss reducing your Estus in an over-the-top way so that you have to fight a hard late-game boss with less health than you're typically used to on already maxed out flasks. This is a gimmick done way better than the Cursed Chalice dungeons just having your max HP, and it's more fair. Joseph already mentioned how he feels like the game gives you too much Estus. You can even entirely avoid this if you want with the Mohg tier, although Anderson says if you're lucky enough to find it. I'll get into why I think it's okay to use the internet as a strategy guide later on in my nitpick section, but for now I am officially giving you watching this video the Google Gamer Pass. Even without the tier like I did first time, I still love this mechanic.
Oh no 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 no. No 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 no. Oh no 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 no, this boss is fucking crazy. No 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 no. Oh my god! What the fuck?
Now, before we talk about Malekith, I will say that Joseph hates him, which is fine. I, for the record, love this boss, and I think he is one of the best examples of your positioning relative to the boss dictating which attacks he will do. He is very consistent and has very good telegraphs, but I know others that dislike him as well just on a preference level. It is funny to me that he shows Malekith's punish window, but he misses it because he gets hit and says that there's never a chance to swing back. Look, you can even jump this explosion for a jump attack before he jumps again. However, Anderson hilariously says that as Bestial Clergyman, he has an unreactable swipe attack when it is clearly telegraphed by the boss's stance. Here is footage of me flawlessing Bestial Clergyman at 70 plus 15 with a Zweihander. This attack is part of a really narrow branch, so I'll just go through it as I understand it. After the double swipe, which is jumpable by the way, he will do one of 3 things. Either crook up his right arm awkwardly to telegraph another 2 swipes to restart the combo, a Bestial Sling which is reactable and a guaranteed combo finisher, and if he does neither of these things, you should roll because the quick swipe is coming. Here is an entire hitlist guide on Malekith if you'd like to get better at him. I'll leave it in the description. By the way, do you know how I learned that the Clergyman swipes were jumpable? It's because I saw Joseph get this sick fucking jump dodge where he hits the jump attack and would have likely low profiled most of the Bestial Sling if that came out. Here's also a quick bonus for how to dodge the anime blade attack. Also, Malekith has an item to make him easier and gives you a cool new way to fight him head on. It's at the end of a long quest line, but again, I don't think it's unreasonable to look that up if you want. Rykard's Skullstorm. He is a cinematic gimmick boss. Learn to fight unlocked. Just run, don't get cornered, and keep an eye on him. Radagon is just such a good fight straight up, and the teleporting is very fair, not an unreactable dice roll bullshit attack that Anderson claims it is. I never had a problem with him, and I always had time to roll even when he would teleport to dodge my Zweihander straight at me on all previous patches. There were new game +7, rune level 1, +0 weapon, solo hitless runs of this boss before Anderson's video was even out, so I don't really feel like I have to explain myself much further. Check out Nathan's Savage Damage if you want to see a 15-minute long perfect hitless Radagon fight using nothing but a club. Elden Stars is super annoying, but the boss only does it once at a certain HP, and challenge runners can skip it by staggering the boss during the long cast animation. I know none of you want to do that, so once you know what the long cast animation looks like, run away, and when the stars are at about chest height, just turn around and roll straight through it. Joseph also hates this boss like a lot of people, but I don't think this boss was untested or anything. If I had to guess, Elden Beast is meant to be a bit of a victory lap of sorts, hence why it's after Radagon, but I have to agree that the fight itself kind of sucks, but the game is still testing your ability to maximize the damage your build can do in a narrow window. Posture breaking is particularly good here. On top of that, the fight is an audio and visual spectacle. I also agree Torrent was likely at some point in development meant to be used here, but it's not like Joseph would have used him anyway because he doesn't like the mounted combat. I do wish they lean harder into the cosmic horror look of the beast, but I'm not too pissed about it though, because in my opinion, usually the true final boss of these games have always been an optional or a DLC boss. Now down to the final two that I can say are the only two real attacks that you cannot avoid 100% of the time with just medium rolling on a melee build that has high recovery weapons. The Godskin Noble Black Flame Belly Wog. This attack comes out and burger flips you faster than you can say fuck, and it's not like Malekith where it lives in a narrow combat string. I just cannot get a read of when he can or can't use it. If you punish with a slow weapon, you will probably get smoked by this attack a few times, and it definitely feels unfair. It doesn't combo into anything, however, so you will rarely die for it unless you are fighting him with low HP. I think people get frustrated by Godskin Noble's insane S-stock mix-ups, his rolling roller attack that's not intuitive to know you should roll directly through it, and then they see this attack and throw their hands up and say, this boss is fucking bullshit. I know I did while learning him. The Bellywog is definitely a stupid attack, but because it will rarely mean your death, it kind of thematically fits since it's such a goofy looking attack in a fight to the death with a morbidly obese Scaly in filthy bathrobes.
Go on a diet, you fat bitch!
Now, here's the thing about this move. You cannot dodge the first part of the combo. If you are intent on playing aggressively and you use an attack with a very long recovery to punish the wrong attack, and you are not close enough to run around her and not far enough to run away from her, and you are trying to medium roll the entire combo. Even then, it doesn't combo into itself, so if you just mash roll fast enough, you will only get hit like 2 or 3 times. I think most of you have figured out by now to get far away from her in the first part and then do back-to-back, precise, and some might say sick as fuck rolls. The other way to dodge it point blank is a little bit harder, but Joseph calls it a speedrun strat. If your goal is to beat Malenia with melee only like mine was, in a game where you can summon Pokemon as meat shields, then it is not a speedrun strat, it is a survival strat. It's not even hard. Most people I've seen get it like the 3rd try. I feel that it would be very obvious if you could just lab her. Just start sprinting around her and then dodge out at the right time. It's just about initiating the sprint fast enough and then knowing the timing. Here's Zero Lenny doing it with the DK Bongo controller. By the way, remember when Joseph mentioned that he knows there is a way to hitless this boss but doesn't care for it because it's too hard and it requires too much passive waiting? Well then what about base level, no upgrade hitless runners who don't use consumables, magic, projectiles, statuses, buffs, ashes of war, spirit ashes, or talismans? These god gamers have to maximize the amount of damage they do or else the fight would literally last hours. Mr. Bork D, as you can see here, is going fucking apeshit on Malenia, and it still takes him nearly 20 minutes of perfect play to kill her. How many waterfall dances do you think he dodges in that time? Do you think he just gets lucky? I'll leave you guys to watch it and see. Gino Machino did the same restrictions, and just by using slightly safer strats, it made the fight last 35 minutes. But wait, Lupine, I'm not a god gamer, I'm a casual gamer. Well, good news, because all of this is of course ignoring the use of Bloodhound Step or blocking with the unfortunately many 100% physical block shields that you could also use on a melee only build, and casters will always be far enough away to be able to easily dodge it. By the way, shield poking is way funner in this game than I thought. You can shield poke to interrupt boss combos and get counter damage, along with the new guard counterattack. It's just so fun. And that's coming from me. Lupine, no son of mine, is going to use fucking shields in a Souls game under my roof ossuary. Joseph complains that Malenia's heal invalidates shield builds, but Malenia doesn't even heal that much from Waterfowl. Just don't crutch on blocking for all of her attacks. It's a necessary evil regardless to make her hard, because shields are fucking broken in this game. In fact, it doesn't even truly prevent that either, since you can just grab a thrusting sword, run barricade shield, and just shield poke the shit out of her all day and outdamage her heals while taking 0 damage in return. My boy Nap beat this bitch and the entire game without even rolling or using iframes anyways.
Come on. Come on, right here, right here. What?
Your strength. Extraordinary. The mark. The truth.
Oh, we did.
It's kind of like Moog's mechanic, where it's a cool way to erase 3 Estus of someone who has been enjoying max Estus for a while. In Malenia's case, your Estus becomes our Estus. Light rolling also makes this like 5 times easier. But still, yes, maybe this attack is unfair, even with a handful of ways to totally negate it and a bunch of creative ways you can deal with it, such as using Endure to not get hit stun by the very first attack and then rolling, or hit trading it with a stomp uppercut. But because it is unfair, does that mean it makes the entire fight bad, or God forbid, boring?
When did I oh my god, the glitch. Oh my god, the glitch. Are you kidding me? What? What?
Joseph brings up the Royal Revenants in Elden Ring and how it's kind of funny that they have total bullshit attacks and are just generally cracked out, but says it's soured because of how much of this problem bleeds over into the bosses. I've just explained why this is an over-exaggerated problem because there are only 2 attacks in the entire game that I believe are unreasonable to dodge on a melee-only, no quick-step, no blocking build. But apart from that, Joseph is actually onto something here. The Royal Revenants are purposely designed to be unfair. That's what makes them so terrifying and so frustrating. By the way, he shows himself dodging backwards into this very telegraphed attack that has a shit ton of forward momentum and not the actual bullshit of them teleporting onto you and instantly attacking. You are meant to see this enemy and shit yourself. This is not a new concept. Think back to the Headless from Sekiro or even the Shark Giants from Bloodborne. When done in tasteful amounts, a dash of bullshit can actually spice up a combat encounter and make it feel like a truly daunting challenge without it feeling like just an RNG shitshow. This is obviously a dangerous thing to try and balance, but it doesn't necessarily mean From can't try, and I think with these 3 enemies the effect was achieved. Speaking of Bloodborne, Lady Maria is one of my favorite fights of all time because of how cinematic it is, how narrative driven it is, the Astral Clock Tower building up her character and mystery prior to fighting her, Bloodborne actually being able to have a fun hunter encounter, and just how fucking cool she is. However, this is to the chagrin of my fellow challenge runner friends because as it turns out, Lady Maria has some very broken attacks, in particular her charge attacks coming out in just a few frames and having extremely disjointed hitboxes with after trails in phase 3. plus the bug that causes her attacks to still come out invisibly even if she is interrupted, essentially making her, in Joseph's terms, an RNG dice roll boss. You could even say that at a certain range, these attacks are unreasonable to dodge, forcing you to position yourself to mitigate the threat of this attack. Sound familiar? This is not to mention her third phase trying to dodge her Flame Trail mega range and speed attacks on 30 FPS that is not at all stable, with more blood flying around than one of Mohg's wet dreams. Actually, one of my favorite things in Bloodborne is to look at the boss room after beating Lady Maria and just be amazed every time to see how much of it you painted with blood in the fight. Fuck, I love it so much. The weird thing is, Anderson actually likes Lady Maria even after being hypercritical on Ludwig. He even weirdly acknowledges that Lady Maria has broken hitboxes, but waves it off and claims that it's just an unintended glitch, while in the next breath saying she is difficult without being broken.
As I showed in the first video, she occasionally shows the same hitbox issues that really shouldn't be happening in the fourth game in a series. But this is a glitch, not an intended part of the fight, and it's worth acknowledging that Maria can be difficult without having to be broken like so many of the other Hunter fights in the game. It's a shame then that she's so vulnerable to parrying and stagger. An added mechanic that made her build up some sort of immunity to it might have worked wonderfully in making it a fight that you really had to master.
Joseph was able to look past the small amount of bullshit of a couple bad hitboxes, performance issues, inconsistent attacks to dodge, and still thoroughly enjoyed the fight. Why can he not afford that same rationale to Elden Ring's bosses? Maybe it's because Elden Ring is too hard and that extra layer of difficulty was actually the straw that broke the camel's back. Who can really say for sure, but for many, I suspect that deep down, this has a ring of truth, much like the phrase "get good" itself. People who can't beat the bosses on their own terms, but also don't want to use the easier RPG aspects no matter how fun or convenient, and so they just make themselves frustrated and bored with the game. Elden Ring's bosses are much harder and require a lot more nuance in how you fight them than previous games, which gives the combat a lot more depth than Souls, even accounting for the increase in new mechanics and build variety. If the game was only as hard as Dark Souls 3 or any of their other previous games, then we would all be here complaining that it's too easy. We're already used to that. I don't know who has to hear this, but maybe you are doing it to yourself. I had to face this realization myself when fighting Malenia, even with the literal thousands of hours in multiple different From titles. I wasn't trying to adapt to this new combat philosophy. Instead, I was resentful and I wanted it to cater to my outdated and nostalgic view of Souls combat. But when has Souls games ever catered to the player in the first place? The entire appeal is that the game and the world don't give a shit about you. I realized that I was mad 'cause bad. Malenia helped me to have that frame of mind shift, and I think that honestly I needed it like a kick in the ass, and for that she will always have a special place in my heart.
Now just strangle her, just cut her arms off. I don't understand, it's like Immortal Warfare 101. Cut them to pieces, cut their arms off, cut her legs off. Like, just fucking cut her eyes out. Like, what are you doing? Why are you staring at a fucking stump?
Oh my fucking god. Pause the video. Pause the fucking video. No, not actually. Keep watching. I just watched what he said about Orphan of Kos out of curiosity, and he says this.
I think this is the most aggressive enemy in the game. I haven't timed them all out or anything, but I'd guess that he's also the fastest. To discuss him, we need to jump back to something that was brought up in the first video, about the healing system in Dark Souls and how all damage needs to be predictable and preventable for that system to work. To me, the Orphan clearly breaks those rules, and it's surprisingly okay, and it's for that reason that I think he's the perfect way to show how combat is handled differently in Bloodborne, and how a seemingly little change like rallying can affect so much. I don't think this boss is one that you're meant to carefully plan on every move and avoid every single one of his attacks. In fact, to do that, you end up playing it quite cheesily and stay away from him for much of it, or have to overuse backstabs. Because you're meant to be able to take some hits, there's meant to be this back and forth, at least the way I see it. The Orphan's second phase is more frantic, but in many ways it's easier. You have more AoE attacks to avoid, as well as contending with him leaping about, but I found these moves to be easier to dodge, and he has longer openings for free attacks between some of them. I don't think there's a better example than this boss fight to show how much of a different game Bloodborne is to Dark Souls, and that approaching them with the same mindset is a mistake. But I also think that it shows just how much better Dark Souls could be, because Bloodborne doesn't make the same demands of mastery from you in order to be, at times, more fun and satisfying to play, while Dark Souls 1 does and feels very limited in combat options now that I've played Bloodborne. I think there's something even better than these games waiting to be made by combining the two, and I really hope that that game is made someday.
Like this wasn't even supposed to be in the script. I just thought Bloodborne would be a fun tangent because I remembered Lady Maria having jank, but so many people liked her anyways. Sure, he attributes this to only working because of the rally system, which, by the way, is in Elden Ring 2. You can literally just play like this if you want. But I disagree. Often the damage you get back from a boss is negligible compared to how much you are taking, and it's not like the absence of a rally system in Elden Ring or Dark Souls makes this playstyle completely invalid all of a sudden. And the funny thing is, I don't even agree with them. Like, you could totally no-hit Orphan of Kos in a fun, fair, pedal-to-the-metal style. Joseph, I could not have said it better myself.
Yo, that spacing is so fucking cracked though. What the
Do you
fuck?
understand how fucking good I am at this fight and I've never beaten it?
Bro, you're stuck on fucking Malenia for 8 hours. What do you mean?
Thank you for watching this far into the video before taking to the comments to call me a dipshit. We are now done with the meat and potatoes portion of the video. Sorry if you see this, Anderson, and I come across as an asshole. I don't really care too much about sounding polite, and honestly, no hard feelings. Feel free to insult me if you want, I can take it. I've watched his videos since the Bloodborne one 6 years ago, and like I've said before, I feel like he always brings up a lot of good but albeit more obvious observations and has some good things to say about the game's more glaring flaws with a handful of interesting ideas, but I can just never see eye to eye with him on Soulsborne game combat systems. It also kind of irks me that he always pretends like the integrated multiplayer doesn't exist and never even mentions it. But it's whatever. I get for most people playing these games, they barely have any interaction with the multiplayer aspect. It just seems weird when you're doing an in-depth review / critique. Doing PvP in these games will inform your opinion of the game's balance real fucking quick, let me tell you. I just get the impression that he wants to be a critic and focus on being critical about the game because he just wants it to be better, you know? Like, it's not perfect, it can always be better. I get that, and I respect that. But much like Joseph thinks the combat is unfair, I think the way he handled his criticism of it was unfair and at times misleading and false. It poisons the discussion about these games since with a lot of them, most info that you can find about them online is misinformation. Seriously, if you try and find any technical info on things like Fextra Life, like parry frames, there is a 99% chance that it is just straight up fucking wrong. Maybe I'm just being unfair to Joseph. Sorry for getting into this cringy personal opinion about his content. But seriously, his opinion was totally valid. It's just weird that instead of acknowledging that his super restrictive, self-imposed playstyle was actively hindering his own enjoyment of the game and making it too hard for himself, he says that Elden Ring is a boring game that has a build diversity problem and complains that his first playthrough is forever ruined. And you can only play your first playthrough once. Like, yeah, dude, you can only lose your virginity once. It doesn't mean it's not going to get better after the first time just because it's special. Suck it up and take the lessons you learned into New Game Plus. These were the takes that had me so bent out of shape that I had to make this video. So with that out of the way, I will give my smaller nitpicks about his other remarks on game design a bit later on in the video. But for now, I think we should get back to the original purpose of this footage, watching me die to Malenia. Now let's see here. We should be close to the part where I kill her, right? Let's just see. Oh no, these were only the deaths from day 1. I still have 2 entire more days of footage of me trying to beat Malenia at rune level 125 with nothing but a Zwei. Fuck.
Alright. Fucking day 2. I'm kind of half cut on wine. And this beer I bought for $33 tastes like fucking shit. Tastes like pickled watermelon. Ah! First try, let's go. Alright, fuck me.
Blade of Malenia.
You're a fucking hoe. That's who you are. No! No! Oh my god! She heals so fucking much! Into that? Oh, you're such a whore! Repose. Spit on her corpse. Oh, I'm dead. Woo, dude! What a fucking battle of attrition. Holy shit! Oh my god! What? What? Where the fuck are you going? Oh, I can't control my guy. Oh my god.
Oh, bro, just Mimic Tier, bro. Bro, I beat every boss using Mimic Tier first try. Bro, Mimic Tier's so good. Bro, I got a +10 Mimic Tier. I beat every boss first try. It's so good, man. Have you heard about the Mimic Tier? Bro, have you tried Mimic Tier? Do you know where the Mimic Tier is, bro? Holy shit. Where's the fucking Mimic Tier? Tell me. Tell me where the Mimic Tier is. Quick, quick, quick. What? No! Cringe! Cringe! What? Ah! Ah! What? No, just kill me. Kill me. That's cringe! Ah! No! No stam? No! I'm dead. Ah! Fuck! Roll. Ah! And no, just kill me. Oh my god!
This video is already too damn long, and I'm really hoping that Edit Lupine can keep this video under an hour. That ship is fucking sailed, bud. So I'm not gonna go over a section of stuff that I agree with Joseph, and honestly, because all that shit is so obvious, you don't really need a critic to tell you. Reused bosses get old, camera bosses in small rooms stuck, open world looks pretty, Moonveil with Mimic Tier broken, etc, etc. Quick side note about the reused bosses. Joseph specifically mentions how the repeats of the Falling Star Beast fights and the Estelle fight ruin your enjoyment of the first fight in retrospect, which is an odd concept in and of itself. I really like both these fights, and I don't mind the reuse since I get to fight them multiple times if I want to in a single playthrough, and given that the multiple Falling Star Beasts we see set up the idea of multiple Estelle-like beings, given how this follows the life cycle of an antlion as pointed out in Zevok's video. Having a green-haired Malenia in a cave would be ridiculous, but this is just a bit of hyperbole on Joseph's part, and I don't think these exact bosses are comparable for how appropriate they are to be recycled. But hey, according to him, if we just delete all the reused bosses and remove all the dungeons that they occupy, that'll definitely improve the game. Anyways, let's just jump straight to the nitpicks I had while watching the rest of his video. A lot of these will be more on the subjective side, so I don't necessarily feel as strongly about them since they aren't the main point of this video. I'll try to keep it quick, but let's just say there's a few of them. To kick things off, let's get back to the point where I mentioned that Joseph says the line, "if you are lucky enough to find it," in reference to the Moog tier that allows you to block his undodgeable gimmick, even though it is in a ruins that is clearly visible on your map in an open world game about exploration. He also mentions earlier that you are breaking some sort of rule if you look up drops for enemies online. I think a lot of people have this notion that you shouldn't look up things about a game because it spoils your own experience. However, when it comes to Souls games, they have always been cryptic in order to encourage discussion about the game and push the community aspect, at least in my opinion. This idea of the community helping each other is baked into various aspects of the game's core design, such as the integrated multiplayer and the message system, and even in interviews about the game's set difficulty and wanting to encourage players to be on the same level of discussion and have a similar experience. It's frankly too much, honestly, as it requires years of independent testing by the community to even figure out fucking poise modifiers and every other backroom mechanic you can imagine, but it is what it is. Demon Souls was meant to be an homage to the previous age of brutally difficult games, and boy, you can bet I used to play them growing up. I played so many Sega Genesis and NES games that were so intentionally cryptic and impossibly hard to stretch out the game length and soak me for strategy guides. Many of them I would even see again on angry video game nerd videos, and it was so gratifying to see that even a grown adult could not beat these games that I had struggled so much with. That's why, in my mind, it just makes sense to me that if you want a game that is still designed in that way, it seems only natural with the internet now to have players share their knowledge and provide that resource to fellow players. It creates a community. People are always so quick to say, oh, those Dark Souls fans are so toxic. And yeah, I would agree a majority are total shitters, but we're not all bad. I can immediately tell that people don't play multiplayer games when they say things like Dark Souls has the worst community. Spend a little time playing League of Legends or COD and you'll find out quick. The Invader community on Twitch is especially very tight-knit and chill. Tangent aside, my point is that it's not the end of the world if you look up where to find the Moog tier, because in my opinion, it is unrealistic for most players to discover all of the secrets and obtuse questlines in the game on their own. And even if you don't get the tier, I still enjoy this mechanic while chugging Estus. Oh, and then he says Bloodflame Talon is unreactable on slow weapons. Fucking Lamau.
If you're lucky enough to find the wondrous Physic Flask thingy that allows you to resist this damage, then it does significantly less, but is still unavoidable damage. If the boss didn't also have a nigh unreactable Flaming Claw response that can punish slow weapon strikes, then I'd be on board with considering this a cool gimmick for the fight.
Don't choke! Oh my god! No! No! No!
Rip. Oh my god, did you... I did not notice his health was that low. I'm so sorry, Lupine.
Another thing that really got my piss to a boil and is a big part of why I'm talking about this in the first place is how Joseph can say the game is boring when he goes out of his way to ignore all of the new mechanics and RPG elements. He doesn't use the more robust magic system that also gives plenty of options for physical builds. He doesn't use the new crafting system and all the new consumables. He doesn't use status effects or poise trading. He treats posture breaks like a neat bonus, the mixed physic tiers that can give you unique properties, the spruced up bow play, guard countering or blocking at all, the customizable ashes of war, great runes, parrying, spirit summons, light rolling, and even when he power stances, it's only to make his jumping L1s hit as hard as possible. You can't fucking ignore all of that and then say, wow, this game is boring, it restricts builds. He even said that in Sekiro, he never used prosthetics at all and only parried the entire game. Like, gee, ever wonder why you're so fucking bored with the combat? You only never experiment and ignore all the combat mechanics outside of the core role and have played the exact same bare bones vanilla way for all games since Dark Souls 1. The game isn't making you play passive. You are playing passive because of your mental hangups and your outdated expectations of a Dark Souls combat system. Speaking of Sekiro, Joseph claims that it is the least replayable of From's previous games because it only has one weapon type.
Its replayability came from doing different builds and the fun of fighting the bosses again, which could be a test of skill that you can repeat or enjoy the expression of mastery. Even in Sekiro, which is arguably the least replayable of the set of games due to it only having one weapon type, but even in Sekiro, like, my biggest criticism for Sekiro is that a lot of the fights start to feel samey. Even though I love it, it is kind of like, you know, I wish there was some more variety, and they asked you to do more perilous moves and more creative uses of training them together and everything.
He even compares prosthetics to spells, which no. You cannot compare the versatility of prosthetics and how they can dynamically change the entire flow of a fight to the dozens of different pew flavors in Souls games. I already have an entire video dedicated to this exact bad take, so I'm not going to get into it right now. Seriously, go watch that for this. It's like my best video. But basically, that game's combat was so deep that it had the most replayability. I will say that I value replayability in the game's combat mastery, and I think Anderson is more valuing exploration aspects and that kind of stuff, but you can't explore something you've already fucking explored. The replay value comes from the gameplay. It's little remarks like this that really makes me wonder how good his grasp of the game's fundamental mechanics he really has. Just watch him try to explain Dark Souls 3 backstabs or show attacks with different telegraphs on Pontiff and Ludwig and claim there's no way to distinguish between them and that somehow animations must be getting crushed and the whole game must be bugged.
His jumping attack has the same problem as so many others in the game. It unlocks your camera, so good luck seeing where he's coming from. This could have been okay since you would eventually learn the timing of when to roll away, but he has a second version of this attack that keeps him in the air for about 3 to 4 times as long.
How far away does that guy on the bridge shoot you from? The whole fucking map?
I think the idea that Purist...
An attempt was made in Dark Souls 3 to have a very smooth transition from what appears like a normal attack into a backstab instead. At first I really liked this change, but now I don't, because it has the same issue as before. First off, sometimes it just flat out doesn't work. The enemy is meant to be locked into the animation if you get it right, which you can see on some of the examples here. The enemy goes rigid for the hit to complete. Sometimes the enemy gets priority or immunity to the stun, however, and you're still locked into the attack because the game can't decide what to do. Either way, something is wrong here. Either the game shouldn't be stunning any enemies when this starts, or it should be stunning all of them. Secondly, there's another attack that has him raising his other sword and then swiping it at the player. Again, shown here, you can see that it's fast even at normal speed. This one is also hard to pinpoint the start of since he'll naturally stand up straight between attacks. When his sword is raised is the clearest moment to start, and from that frame to damage is only 12 frames.
Hey guys, I was just playing Sekiro here and I really liked the game, but I did find this one boss here who has this crazy attack where it comes out faster than I can even blink. At first I really liked it because I'm like, wow, that's cool. It's really cool. These attacks happen faster than I can actually see, like faster than the speed of light. I really like that, but actually now I don't because it just hits me and it kills me instantly. Like, look at this shit. Look, it's like 3 frames. Look, like how are you supposed to react to that? It's impossible. I can't believe they do this.
About these 2 attacks in particular is that these warning animations are used for other attacks that give you more time to react, and they are exactly the same, which sort of compounds the issue, doesn't it? Here's another instance of him doing it quickly again, and it's the same timing as before. It's like when the game chains attacks together into a combo, it munches half of the animation, so you just have to automatically assume that these attacks are coming and dodge preemptively. For that first stab example I showed, it looks like he skips right over the part where he's meant to draw his arm back in warning. This actually wouldn't be so bad if there was some consistency to it, like the boss enters this rage slashing phase that you need to avoid. Unfortunately, it's random, at least it is as far as I can tell. Sometimes he won't do the full combo, sometimes he'll pause if you go out of range during it, and then resume it when you're close again without any warning, so you have no idea if the combo's done or not. This is also troublesome if you're trying to weave in a counterattack and you just have to play the guessing game of, is he actually done attacking yet, since he has infinite stamina to chain these together. I do not think this type of thing is intentional. If it is, then I can't say that it's good.
On the point of replay value and exploration, Joseph does recommend randomizing the dungeons, and he basically just says, I want chalice dungeons, or at least an optional built-in randomizer mod in the start menu. Maybe a few people would like that, but generally people fucking hated the chalice dungeons in Bloodborne. They were a long, repetitive grind for rewards that were RNG. Also, they were very ill-explained. I've done all the story chalices maybe 4 times out of at least 100 playthroughs. It made actually optimizing a build with blood gems such a fucking waste of time. Joseph says that the side dungeons in Elden Ring are more repetitive with its build block-like structure than the chalice dungeons, and I could not disagree enough. And those are just the chalices that aren't randomized. Could you imagine the hit and quality if all the side dungeons in Elden Ring were totally randomized and not these intentionally designed trap-riddled death gauntlets? What makes you think you would want randomized dungeon content if you are already sick of seeing it in intentionally designed layouts? How would they even generate dungeons and keep that seamless with the open world without a loading screen? This also makes invading dungeons way harder because you have to generate the entire dungeon on your end first, which took minutes in Bloodborne. and by the time you get into the world, the host is already in the boss room and you get booted straight back into another loading screen. I know an actually good randomly generated AI dungeon that the game explains would be the tits, but I feel like that's a tall ask to implement a system of this magnitude on top of a game already as big as Elden Ring. Plus, the rewards are now either also random and we have to grind for RNG, or it's a reward that you get every time, like upgrade materials, and become samey. Sure, it sounds nice in theory, but I suspect that even if we had good AI-generated dungeons with half-decent rewards, people would still just be like, why the fuck would I waste my time doing infinite dungeons? I could just play a roguelike instead. If you want to explore forever because 100 hours wasn't enough for you, go play No Man's Sky. By the way, the game already has a replayability incentive and it's called multiplayer. For example, replaying the game at a super low level to make a Stormveil Castle invader build is a great challenge, and invading is insanely fun there, not to mention ganking and dueling. Zully made a video while I was editing this where she made a good point about the repeated areas, teaching you what to expect without the need for tutorials, and why clever game design and gameplay loops should not immediately be accused of lazy game development.
In its world to find, Elden Ring has a staggering amount of spells, weapons, healing upgrades, spells, shields, spells, talismans, spells, armor, consumables, upgrade materials, spells, and spells. There are weapon arts too, also known as spells.
Ah yes, my favorite spells, Shield Bash and No Skill.
In theory, placing the majority of these around the world to find should be a good thing since they're practical, tangible rewards, but in practice, it means that every player is going to get sweet fucking nothing from most shrine dungeons, stone sword rooms, and even some of the legacy loot chests.
I'm not sure why, but I feel somehow this is going to be my most controversial segment. I don't know shit about open world games, I just know Souls. Regardless, this argument makes no fucking sense to me because he just goes around in circles with himself, and it's just odd considering he acknowledges you are playing an RPG about build diversity. Most fucking shit you won't be able to use, that's how builds work. Not to mention, he doesn't even bother with Ashes of War, let alone spells, because he just hates cool shit, I guess. By the way, there are a total of 171 spells and incantations combined in Elden Ring, while there are 309 weapons, nearly double that. He also says that most of the talismans aren't broadly applicable, but then he doesn't realize that yes, because they are supposed to be situational, which is why you keep most of them on you to hard swap in any given situation. Instead, he just writes off talismans as bad dungeon rewards. The whole incentive to explore is because you don't know what you're gonna get. He stresses this a lot in his Q&A video, but what he's actually getting at here is he thinks that there should be extra rewards on top of the existing ones that are universal for all builds. This is of course ignoring the fact that spirit ashes are universal and also pretending that weapon upgrade materials don't exist, but I digress. Let's examine that.
Permanent passive stat increases.
Passive permanent stat increases. A numbers boost. Woohoo, so fun and rewarding. Now I love the side dungeons because it's forcing me to find and do all of them. Fuck me if I just want to make PvP builds. Add that shit to the list of memory stones, golden seeds, sacred tears, crack pots, ritual pots, perfume bottles, bell bearings, prayer books, spell books, and the 50 cookbooks that I need. Not to mention, what's the point in making a build if everyone can get these permanent stat increases? That would just become the mandatory baseline for all characters and would make twinking way worse. By the way, do you guys know how many free levels you can already get on a single character? 140 free fucking levels. We don't need more stats. What we do need is more shit with unique RPG properties, like the cloak on the Black Knife set, muting your footsteps. Even if it's some sort of health container system, are we now just making all the health upgrades tied to the dungeons? This is already how spell slots work with the wizard towers, and Anderson fucking hated those. Besides, this just introduces yet even more systems that have to be accounted for in matchmaking, and removing stats from the level system and tying it to exploration would make everything way harder to properly balance. He also says that he knows runes are the universal reward, but since they aren't unique to dungeons, they don't really feel significant as a reward. As if getting a pop-up saying that you get a flat HP upgrade now is somehow more worthwhile than taking your runes and consciously leveling your health.
Talisman and armor upgrade materials. This is another no-brainer, although if for some reason From doesn't want players upgrading armor anymore, they can just stick to talismans. The game kinda has this already with finding better versions of some talismans, but they're few and far between. Finding a talisman that your build doesn't want could be made exciting if every talisman came with some upgrade material, so you still get to increase the power, incrementally of course, of one you are using.
Oh boy, can't wait to make my Hornet Ring +3. The suggestions for talisman and armor upgrades is just another boring numbers boost, and how would that even work in the case of the talismans anyway? How can my Crepus Vial make me more quiet? This would also make the stat boost talismans like the Star Scourge Heirloom start with a shit worthless base amount that you would need to upgrade in order to make it worth the talisman slot. Now, instead of just getting the talismans that I want, I now have to do triple the amount of side dungeons so I can upgrade them all. And oh my god, I have always hated armor upgrades because when I play with a Colossal build, I don't have the vitality to use the heavy armor that I want until I am done with my build at the end of the game, because I need to level health and strength first. This may be alleviated a little now with equip load being tied to endurance, however the bar for minimum poise is now so much higher that I highly doubt it. You need nearly 100 poise just to tank a halberd. He also asks for more armor sets, which I would also like, but that doesn't really fix his personal problem with unique rewards. And the horse upgrades are fine, but we might be getting into cosmetic territory, which would be nice, but it's not exactly enhancing the game experience by a whole lot. Oh, by the way, after all that, he says that this would actually make the game worse because it makes the side content mandatory, and we would casually have to rebalance the entire game and randomize dungeons, but not on the first playthrough. So yeah, he makes a problem where one doesn't exist, proposes some half-baked fixes, and then says they wouldn't work anyways and that we'd need to redesign the entire game, and then ends the segment by saying he explored too much side content anyways. Great stuff. I know he's just spitballing ideas, but if I'm going to get on board with rebalancing the entire game and redesigning the dungeons, then I need at least one concrete idea. The only halfway decent suggestion that I heard when trying to ask around for other ideas on how rewards and side dungeons could be improved was making a second category of side dungeons like the mines that are randomly generated or change after world triggers like defeating a shard bearer, or something that you could do infinitely in one playthrough and have them drop more weapon upgrade materials so that you could grind out more weapons to try and experiment with. I personally do not see the issue with dungeon rewards anyways, since it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. I am going to do all the side content on my first playthrough because I don't know the reward beforehand, and I'm glad I can just choose to skip certain side content on my second playthrough if I want to. I am going beyond the benefit of a doubt and just doing Joseph's job at this point, so let's just move on. Another thing Joseph hates is the Great Runes, because the tutorial lies and promises a passive effect, but in fact you do have to use a rune arc to reap its benefits.
And then the tutorial message lies to you and says you'll get some benefit from equipping it that can be improved further by using a rune arc, but nope, you need the rune arc on for anything to happen at all. This sucks and made doing these journeys a hell of a lot less exciting. If these were fun passives, even at low levels without the rune arc, then this would have been a very rewarding system and made these quests much more memorable. I hope this is glitched and fixed later, but like I just said, even if so, my first run for these is ruined forever.
God, he's so dramatic. I imagine the tutorial being misleading could be due to a translation issue, as Japanese to English is not exactly the most straightforward thing to translate, but regardless, he basically just says this whole system is shit because it requires a consumable and it somehow ruins the fun of finding and ascending the divine towers. Like, whoop-de-fucking-do, you need to use a rune arc. It's like embering, but even better because you have options beyond just an HP bump. It also acts as a real incentive to get people to participate in the PvP ecosystem, which is a big, if not essential, part of these games' longevity. There are still people playing on private Dark Souls 3 servers at this very moment, a game that they have played nearly every day since 2016. I will say though that I wish all players could use Great Runes in PvP, as well as maybe more playstyle altering runes such as the Malenia rune rather than just stat buffs. Although the edge it gives you can be nice for specific builds, it once again gives players a real incentive to participate in the PvP that is seamless with the game's single player experience. Getting back to the Great Runes though, you can even give yourself the HP regain mechanic from Bloodborne that Joseph enjoyed so much, so this being all he had to say about Great Runes was quite odd. I like this method a lot more compared to bonfire kindling because it's more dynamic and it gives you more options, the way an RPG should.
If you jump when you're close to Steve, then there's a random chance he will instantly thrust his spear into your face. And this attack comes so quickly that the perilous warning sound and symbol is like a joke. He doesn't always do it, and yet Steve will sometimes do it after you respond to his attack that requires you to jump. You can get the warning of a sweep, jump, and eat a spearhead to the face when Steve cancels out of his sweep halfway because you triggered his dice roll thrust on your shift to being in the air. This reminds me very much of the issues I had with Pontiff Sullivan in Dark Souls 3, where states and animations are being skipped or munched and it's unclear what's intended.
From a gameplay perspective, I like that Steve can do this because
he shows this weird-ass Shinobi Hunter attack that I have literally never seen in 500 hours of challenge running Sekiro as an example of enemies having mega cheap attacks. I guess it's some sort of anti-air to force you into his ground game, but with him canceling sweeps into it, I'm sure Joseph just isn't hitting jump again fast enough, which would Goomba stomp him and cancel this attack entirely. Regardless, this cannot be broadly applied to the late game bosses in Elden Ring, as the only real bullshit unreactable attack is the Black Flame Bellywog, and that attack isn't an input read at all.
Enemies in this series usually had to abide by the same rules as the player, and that's not true anymore. Unfortunately, it's hard to know what's intended here though.
What? He just kind of says this out of nowhere, and I don't know what he meant by this. Seriously, there's not like a bunch of context around this. Like, I genuinely don't know what he meant by this. I've seen this complaint on several other videos already, people crying that the bosses are somehow no longer on the same field or bound by the same restrictions as the player. This is fucking stupid because you are a random undead and you are fighting fucking gods. Why the fuck would they be bound by the same rules as you? Are all bosses supposed to just be mimic tier now? Tell me how fucking Bed of Chaos or Midir played by the same rules as me. Since we are talking about enemies breaking the rules though, I'm just gonna mention something that I left out of the Malenia section. To my knowledge, Malenia has a mechanic that is unique to her from all the other bosses. Her moves where she takes no poise stagger also do not apply posture damage to her if you hit her during that attack. She can also cancel her stagger animation. She cannot cancel a stagger into a waterfowl dance or an attack, however. She can only cancel into a dodge or a block or her slow kick in phase 2. Also, she cannot cancel a heavy stagger animation, only a light stagger. I imagine this was implemented to prevent her from being stunlocked to kingdom fuck, like looping her with stomp uppercut infinites, which you can kinda do anyways, but it can lead to some weird interactions. I think it still falls under my unfair doesn't necessarily mean bad or boring point, and it's pretty easy to play around even without knowing it exists, and you get a feel for how she behaves anyways. This actually makes colossal weapons arguably better against her compared to other weapon classes, since she can't cancel this type of stagger. Doing 2 L1s with curved swords is riskier with her potentially canceling into a dodge behind you. Swinging twice against a boss this hard, like Orphan of Kos, has always been greedy anyways though. This strapping lad here made a few videos about it if you want to learn more.
The links as always are in the description down below.
If you're not playing with 2 weapons, even if they are colossals or a weapon plus a shield or caster thing, then you are making things much harder for yourself than you might think, compared to choosing to do the same in the previous games with going 2-handed on 1 weapon.
He also complains that the game is pigeonholing him somehow into either power stancing or using a shield, or a staff, or a talisman, or a fast offhand weapon, or a torch, or a crossbow, etc. when he fails to mention the 50% strength bonus you get from 2-handing, which gives you a shit ton more AR at high level, and at low level it lets you use weapons that you don't have enough strength to one-hand. If you power stance colossals, like yeah, your jump attacks will hurt, but that's such a fucking heavy stat investment just so that you have a nuke attack that has a super long recovery. Joseph instead relies on hit trading with the jumping L1s and neglects the other faster attacks like the crouch and running attack to use the entire moveset situationally.
Radahn is on a horse, you can be on a horse too. You're allowed to do it so you can close the gap between you and him, and also you can jump over some of his shockwave moves, but yet it's still not good because you don't have the iframes needed to dodge all the rest of his moves. You can joust him, but he also has some quick attacks that can just knock you off, so it's not really ever safe. On foot, the issue is that you can't see him all that clearly, but it's still probably the best way to fight him, I guess. I don't know. I really don't like this fight, and it's also received changes in a patch, so I guess that shows you that other people aren't too happy about it either.
Now I know you ain't talking shit about my boy Radahn. He comes so close to realizing you can just get on and off the horse to dodge certain attacks, much like you do when fighting dragons. When they start a breath attack, you have time to jump on your horse and ride away. The standing horse mount and dismount even has good iframes, and it's seamless. Regardless, Radahn is my personal favorite fight solo. He's so fucking good. His camera problems are not bad at all in my opinion. Speaking of which, you guys would be surprised how much you can see a fire giant if you just unlock and just point the camera up. Seriously, don't always play locked on. Plus his phase 2 isn't even half bad with the camera. The Radahn nerf he refers to was also reverted to my knowledge, and the only change that was left was some cleaned up hitboxes, which were great. I keep hearing this sentiment over and over, and not just from Anderson. I am worried about the direction these games are going in. The game is unfair and it makes the player unfair. I don't want to be forced into using Ash summons. You need to be able to hitlist these games in Melee and have it still be fun, even though I've never fucking done that. Let's get this out of the way. You can hitlist all of Elden Ring's bosses in a fun, fast-paced way on Melee. I honestly think a lot of people are frustrated at Ash summons because it proves to them in their mind that bosses are unfair just because there are also a handful of attacks in the game that require specific dodges. They recognize it as an easy mode and then die endlessly to the hard bosses, and in the back of their mind they just know that they could have used Mimic Tier or Tish or Great Shield soldiers and absolutely annihilate the boss. So they convince themselves that From wants you to use them and have made some aspects of bosses impossible to outskill for the reasonable player in exchange for those mechanics. The same could also be said for any form of boss cheese, whatever you perceive that to be, such as Sleeping Godskin Duo. I've shown why this is wrong. The game only really gets iffy on a melee mid-roll build, having to play around Bellywog, timing Elden Stars once, if at all, and being careful about Waterfowl. And maybe Godric forcing you back into mid-range if you don't like that style of boss and you don't have the best reaction time. By the way, I have seen him bug out and not do the Storm Assault, and this guy literally just stood behind him and R1'd him to death without moving, and Godric could do nothing to hit him. They don't understand this game's combat, the combo branching evolution, and just think that Margit's knives are straight bullshit RNG, and then point a finger to broken spells and Ash summons and claim that From is now trying to force players into using cheap shit. Another way I've heard this put is that From made the bosses slightly unfair, and in return they made the player character super unfair. This, I think, speaks to why we never should have an easy mode in Dark Souls. The temptation is too strong for us mortals. It drives us mad, and in the end, it would detract from the intended sense of accomplishment that is the core design philosophy. How many of you died to Waterfowl for the 30th time, said fuck it, committed the cardinal sin, and popped Mimic Tier?
How does he get more staggers than I do? You like, bitch, eat that firebomb, you fucking dumb whore. Look at him. He's fucking beating the shit out of her. Bro, fucking smack this bitch. Oh my god. Oh my god. He's slapping the shit out of her. Holy fuck, dude.
I understand the game needs to be accessible, which is probably why Elden Ring has been such a commercial success, but I do agree that Ash Spirits aren't the way to go. As Joseph aptly put it, it turns the bosses into piñatas. This is an easy mode that does add depth from an RPG standpoint and are easy dungeon rewards and maybe would grow on me if they were nerfed, but it allows you to entirely circumvent the game mechanics in much the same way that Magic always has. Maybe a better way would be to give revives like Sekiro did as an easy mode. That way you still must overcome the boss by fighting them head on. By the way, these things would completely fuck PvP, so you would have to integrate it such that you could tear it away the second you connect to another player's world. Of course, without the summons, the gang fights are pretty much aids, and no, I'm not talking about the commander fights. Those fat fucks don't even engage you and just edgewalk when their summons are active. Get over it. So the summon system has some merit. I understand that Double Crucible Knight and every other duo boss, including Godskin duo, holy shit, definitely them, fucking blow, and even when using Ash Spirits, some may not enjoy that. But can we please give these developers a fucking break? Everyone keeps complaining that there aren't enough Shardbearer bosses or NPC quest lines after saying that their first playthrough lasted from 70 to 100 hours in one of the most mechanically intricate games that they have ever played, in one of the nicest looking open worlds. Seriously, Breath of the Wild and Skyrim have the same problem of samey, repetitive dungeons, but also have toddler-level combat systems in comparison to Elden Ring. You just know these Funko Pop Reddit dads would lose their shit over any article saying that a game developer worked its staff half to death, except I guess in Japan where that business practice is just common. There are 177 or so bosses in Elden Ring, with many being reused. I'm sure at some point they said, fuck it, we gotta reuse some bosses to fill all these goddamn dungeons we designed. Like, fucking chill, guys. I don't think the gank fights prove Elden Ring is specifically trying to force you to rely on easier mechanics, so much as, hey, we need to fill up some boss rooms because the fans are becoming alarmingly suicidal after 2 years without a crumb of news. Maybe I'm used to there always being unfinished and large swaths of cut content in Souls games, because shit like reused assets didn't even make me fucking blink. When art is this good, it just becomes self-referential rather than recycled. Regardless though, this is completely pretending that we live in an alternate timeline in which co-op, NPC summons, and magic that allow you to do extremely high damage from far away has never existed in the Souls series to begin with. This is why I think it is wrong to attribute the design changes to the new ease of access mechanics. I just think that From has big expectations of us now after more than a decade. Sure, a couple attacks in the entire game could be tweaked a little, but I am generally optimistic about adding combo branching, that being much more dynamic and interesting, and From wanting us to think about alternative ways to dodge an attack than simply timing a roll for every single attack in the game. This is a concept I touched upon in my Sekiro video, and I am sure that a studio that can make a game like that has far grander ideas percolating than just more Dark Souls clones. I'm pretty sure Miyazaki never even wanted to make a sequel to Dark Souls in the first place, so I imagine Elden Ring is just the game that he always did want to make back then without limitations, and now they're gonna try different things in the future. I also want to address the fact that you will see me with Bloodhound Step equipped in a lot of my first playthrough footage despite using Giant Hunt for a majority of it. Seeing it there honestly disgusts me a bit given how stupid fucking broken it is and how perfectly it ruins PvE and PvP. But the matter of the fact is this. Playing with a quick hander setup is really fun for mix-ups, and they clearly put this in here and refuse to delete it for dipshits like me who have this incessant need to iframe every attack in the game and play melee only. I really tried to only use it if absolutely necessary, and I reserved it for dealing with the most oppressive of attacks. And guess what? It genuinely helped me enjoy the late game fights so I could get over them and then be pumped to jump into New Game Plus to continue to learn the bosses even more intimately, eventually being able to flawless some. It actually sped up the process of learning which direction and when to dodge things like Waterfowl dance. I took the fucking black pill, lads. I used the RPG elements that the game gave me to make the game just slightly easier, and it made it so much more fun on my first time through. And I rest assured, knowing that if I really wanted to, I could flawless these bosses just with the mid-roll. Finally, I'll just reiterate that these points are definitely more subjective in nature, and if you disagree, I'd love to hear why in the comments. I have no problem with people hating things that I love from a personal preference standpoint, but if you're just gonna ignorantly shit on it, I'm not gonna let it slide. Sorry if I got more pissy towards the end, but watching a 1 hour and 40-minute video 4 times will do that to you, not to mention the 4-hour Q&A livestream and the earlier Souls videos. I know I probably came across like a giant Elden Ring dick sucker, but I actually do have a metric fuck ton of complaints about the game's weapons and magic balance, backstabs, and the way invasions work currently, but it wasn't really relevant for this video. I also know how often I brought up PvP, but guess what? It's part of the fucking game. Some might even say integral. If you take anything away from this video, it's think critically for yourself and don't be afraid to find your own fun in these games, whether that's using the more RPG elements or persevering with your challenge run purist playstyle. Learn to adapt and know that From Games have always asked the player to meet them on its terms so that you can learn to enjoy the game the way that it was designed to be. I'm risking this video becoming a long-form video essay if this goes on, so without further ado, I will be doing a challenge run of Elden Ring at twitch.tv/lupineos, where I will be doing all remembrances, naked, rune level 1, no magic, ashes or summons, Zweihander only. If you know me, then you know I stream on weekends and that I also nickname runs so that they aren't such a mouthful. This run shall be dubbed the Suck It Anderson run.
Another one? Come on. Okay, I'll take it. This has gotta be it. This has gotta be it. Oh! What the fuck did she say? Fuck you. I don't give a shit. I don't give a fuck. Shove it up your ass, you fucking whore. Oh, you're such a whore. I'm sorry. Shut up, you're dead. Fuck off. GG. Easy. First try. No, that's a fucking dumb meme. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up, me.
Thank you so much for watching. I would be really pumped to see you over on Twitch and be happy to chat there or down below in the comments. And folks, remember to leave a like if you like, please subscribe.
Wow, that is delicious. Finally, some good fucking food.
Before we get into why Morgott has the best feat in the series, first let's take a quick 20 minutes to talk about how healing has worked in previous titles, starting with Kingsfield.
Say the line!
Anderson.
It's not about it being too hard, it's that it's not fun, it's boring. And I'm not trying to weasel out of saying it's not too hard. It is too hard.
Keep it amicable in the comments. I'm not trying to start any beef here. I only want to wrestle with ideas, not people. Unless it's pro wrestling, then hell yeah.
The rock is extreme because there's nowhere to go. Nowhere to go? Not the cage! Oh, yeah!
How you doing, everybody?
Oh, yeah! Oh, my God! Oh, my God! The second pedigree on the thumbtacks! The second pedigree! Come in me! Come in my wife!
Oh yeah, I'm calling you out, Anderson. You have the audacity to challenge me in the ring after my track record? Come at me, video game critics. I remember when I used to play with Power Stan's Blades of Ruin when I was still in the cradle. Radagon, what are you doing taking your shirt off? What do you think this is, a high school fight? You look like a clown. This is how you play, Loretta.
Oh jeez, she just keeps running away from me. This game is so passive and boring. She just keeps running away.
This is how I fight, Loretta. Come here, bitch. Horse girls are fucking weird, bro. You think you got what it takes to last 60 seconds in the cage with a genetic freak like me? Fucking hop right over that horse. Chris Hansen called me asking if I knew the whereabouts of Mo, Lord of Blood. I told him I put that ugly freak back in the sewers where he belongs. And that's where I'm gonna put Anderson this Sunday. Sunday. Chris Hansen then applauded me over the phone. Obama was there. You know that wrestler that says you can't see me? Well, my motto is I can't see you because my weapon is so big it blocks half my fucking screen. Doesn't matter though, cause I'm fucking Adonis. You hand me a fucking tuba and tell me to kill God, and I'll say, you want me to kill him in C or E minor? Yeah.
I don't know shit about music theory, but what I do know is that a brass instrument can be a pretty decent murder weapon. Tell him what I told you to say, Mr. Mean Gene Oakland.
You told me to tell Anderson not to buy any winter clothes.
Oh yeah, the future does not look bright from Mr. Anderson. All I'm saying is, don't buy any unripe bananas, cause you won't live to eat them, oh yeah. I beat this game at rule level 70 plus 15 with nothing but my grandfather's Zweihander. Your Nippon steel might be 1,000 times folded, but I nicknamed my pure Germanic two-hander the Shattering. You know why? Cause it shattered 1,000 katanas. Eat your heart out, weeaboos. Oh yeah, I was born into the Ultra mindset, molded by it. And I'll see you, Anderson, in the ring this Sunday at You Disagreed With Me About a Video Game Mania.
The mark of a true lord.
You're goddamn right.